Welcome to Engage People and Drive Change. I'm Jonathan Banks. Once again, we're on the show where we talk about how to message, measure, and manage challenging change. Today, we've got a really great topic. We're going to dive into the lesser known behavioral change strategies for community engagement. This is such an important topic. Community engagement is an organizational learning process. This is how we become one with the people we seek to create our best world with. So let's talk about behavioral change in light of community engagement. Welcome, one and all. Maida, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Jonathan. How are you?
I'm doing really well. It's smoky again here in Minneapolis. Getting some wildfire smoke down here. So that's one of the things that we're always thinking about here at Next about how to create our best world and the importance of sustainability when I look at days like this and see this type of weather outside. But otherwise, doing really well. And it's good to be here with you, Maida. It's really good to be here with you talking about the lesser known approaches to behavioral change and community engagement. And that's a really important topic. So thanks for studying up on this and bringing this to us to talk about today.
No, for sure, for sure. I mean, on my end, it's been kind of raining, and all of a sudden, I mean, and then it gets hot, and then it's raining again. But today, it's like really both of the extremes that we've been getting. So I'm really with you on like the weather change there.
Yeah, totally. And it's something that is definitely impacted by the way that organizations operate and the communities that they operate within. It's really important for us to be cognizant of that. So that's really good thought going into the conversation today about community engagement. Just a couple plugs before we get started. We want people to get out there and visit the ourbestworld.com website that's up running. It's a great new way to be inspired to create our best world. So go out and check that out. Got a couple dates coming up here. July 13th, we have the Engage People and Drive Change Conference. That's Our Best World 2023 in St. Paul, Minnesota at the Como Zoo and Conservatory. So we're having Our Best World 2023, Engage People and Drive Change. Go ahead and check that out. That's on the Our Best World website as well. So those are just a couple shameless plugs before we get into the conversation today. Maida, why is community engagement so important?
For sure. I mean, I think in whether it's the work that we're doing with the public sector, or even if you're in an organization or if you're a small business and whatever, like we need to engage with the community in order to, whether it's grow our business, to find out more insights about the kind of patrons or folks that we're trying to serve, or to be a good representative of the people that we're again trying to serve, right? So or in the corporation setting, wanting to represent your customers or get their insights as best as possible. So I think whatever areas of life or business that you're in, that's really, really important.
I agree with that. And, just going back to the idea about this is how our organization learns who we should be and the types of services that we should be providing. We got to be connected with community. That's so important. And what is the definition of community engagement? I think we hear a lot of the, excuse me, sorry about that. Frog in my throat here, excuse me. I think we hear a lot of the term community engagement, and I've actually heard people, kind of have some disagreements about what community means as well. So, Maida, how do you define community engagement?
Yeah, I think there's two parts there. So I guess just the overall like community engagement piece is really the process of involving individuals, groups, and organizations in decision making, problem solving, and most importantly, like collective action. So just being able to engage people in order to drive your strategies or drive insights for how you want to do business in the future, or how to like connect with people. I think as you mentioned, like there are different definitions around community, and I think for us it's really just more around like that general definition of community. I mean, communities are, it's really everyone, but I think we sometimes do want to be specific with which groups or identities of communities we want to engage with, so that we can have like a more focused and elaborate and deeper insights too. So like not being shy about naming, okay, we want to engage with low income people of color communities or the disabled community and all of those things. I think being specific in what's the aim of why we want to engage with those folks and how we would use that information for whatever purposes we want to use it for is kind of the important piece there. But Jonathan, I mean, also, like, what would you add to that? Oh, I can't hear you.
This conversation is one of my favorite to go into, because community engagement is core of what we do here at Next. And it's really just core to the concept of our best world. If we can understand what people want for their better tomorrow, then we can have our organization help create that for them. And so that comes down to community engagement. One thing that I would say, just to key off on something that you mentioned, was the different ways of engaging community and looking at different segments is important. And I think that you got to be careful there to make sure that you don't take a biased approach towards engaging community. But like at Next, one of the things that we like to do is use kind of a profile based approach, and that's one of the things that you just mentioned. Looking at, okay, we're going to engage maybe public transit users. We're going to engage folks, of a certain income bracket. We're going to engage folks maybe who don't speak English, or things of that nature. So we're not doubling down on the biases of the past, but we're really looking at some very tangible, data-driven elements to engage community about, because at the end of it, we want to take an equitable approach in the way that we do our community engagement, and make sure that not only do we provide the information that we need to help our organizations deliver better products and services, but also that we are repairing harms that have been done in the past in our work as we put it out there. So that's just what comes to my mind when I think about some of those tactics around community engagement. The behavioral change aspects of community engagement are pretty interesting too. Maida, did you have some thoughts to share with us on the behavioral change aspects of community engagement?
Yeah, I think, before I kind of introduce this thing called nudge theory, which we'll come back to, I think there's also like a gap between, okay, we want to engage with the community in like all these different ways, but how does or like, why are we talking about behavioral change in that sense? So I think just to clarify, it's not that we want to change how people are behaving, but I think it's more of a two-way street, that perhaps like their insights could help us make decisions about how we want to run things, but at the same time there may be things that we want folks to change about, so that, for example, we talked about the weather earlier, right? So how can we make perhaps like the environment when it comes to waste management or something like that would make our best world when it comes to the way people are roaming around like the public spaces. So I think this will make more sense as I talk about the nudge theory, but basically,
that's for sure.
Yeah. So like the nudge theory is kind of basically just using subtle positive reinforcement and choice architecture to influence behavior and encourage community engagement. I mean, it's a loaded bunch of words, but basically there are examples around, as I mentioned, right? Like we want people to behave in a way that is positive into the public space. So perhaps like placing recycling bins in prominent locations to encourage recycling, or using in Singapore, actually, it's really, really funny and interesting, but they have these mascots that people will make fun of. There's different characters, and one of them is called Stand Up Stacy. So you'll see it in all of like the train carts, like the seats that are meant to be accessible. So people would say, oh, like there's that stand up Stacy, or if you say, people would know what that means. It's really, really silly, but it's just posters that people put on like accessible seating to ensure that people are giving it up for pregnant women or those who are injured or elderly and so forth. So I mean, these kind of like positive, subtle reinforcement is kind of how we can get people in the public space to just behave differently in a way that's really for the betterment of everyone else. So I mean, that's kind of some of the simply put, that's kind of where that's at.
Oh, that's interesting. So that's sort of marketing, advertising-ish type of way of looking at behavioral change. And where does the nudge come in there?
Yeah, I mean, the nudge is really, I mean, the marketing itself is kind of where we want to nudge people into doing things differently so that we are trying to, let's say, solve a problem, right? So I mean, tying that back to what we said earlier about community engagement, perhaps there's a lot of complaints about littering on the streets, or that people are not giving up accessible seating to those who need it. And so then the solutions would be to kind of use the nudge theory for folks to change those behaviors in that way. And I mean, that's really the crux of it. But yeah, I'm curious to hear from your standpoint, Jonathan, how if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, well, I think it's really interesting. I think when I'm considering community engagement, I'm always looking at ways to have to decrease the gap between the organization and the community, and in one sense, turn them into one working, functioning organization together, and decrease the barriers between all of the stakeholders who are involved. So some of the things that I think about when it comes to helpful nudges, when it comes to community engagements, are actually on the internal side of things. Similarly speaking, when we get feedback from community, when we have maybe, embedded ourselves with an organization, been kind of working shoulder to shoulder with them for some time and gathered data with them, to be able to bring that data back into the organization and to use that data as a nudge, and not just to say like, here's information, but also to say, here's information, here's how to practice it, and here is how to kind of celebrate the fact that we practice it and saw a reward. And so kind of get that dopamine hit for the organization based on the information that was brought back. Those experiences turn into data, turned into a little bit of a nudge, and followed through with a reward at the end of it. So some practical ways just of thinking through that is, when we think about being accountable to, community, say that we received, feedback that, or we gathered data rather, that, maybe there's a barrier for 50% of library patrons to attend certain programming, right? So we have to take that information and not say, well, we need new programming. What we need to do is we need to get that into our accountability for developing programming, to make sure that when people are developing new programming, that they have a nudge there to say, hey, let's think about it in respects of this constituency that we're not reaching, or that we're not bringing in. So that's kind of the way that I think about it on the internal side of things. How do we bring that data in and turn it into an internal nudge so we can be more responsive, reflexive, and accountable to the communities that we serve?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that's really good perspective on, I mean, I was mostly talking about like just the general like public, but I mean like your organization, your employees are also communities as well. So I think that's something that sometimes it doesn't come naturally to us to think about it in that way.
Yeah. Well, this has been a really good conversation, Maida. Thank you for bringing this important topic to us. I know that we're kind of running out of time here. We've got a little bit shorter amount of time, but why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit more about how to reach you and to keep in touch with you, Maida?
Yeah, for sure. You can always find me on LinkedIn. I think my name is pretty unique. I would say so myself. So if you just type Maida Surya, you should be able to find me on LinkedIn, and you'll see my tagline, "May the force be with you." Just want to plug that in here at some point in time, which is right now, and you can find me there. Please also find us on socials, on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook at next.co. It's kind of spelled out. And that is where we're at.
Yeah, awesome. And today we just talked about a little bit about how we can use nudges in community engagement. Public placement of information that's seen often, bringing data back into the organization for accountability. Some things for us to work on there. Once again, just a couple of things to note on the next side of things. July 13th, engage people and drive change. We're talking about that at Our Best World 2023 in St. Paul, Minnesota. Looking forward to talking to you all. I'm Jonathan Banks. We're signing off. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.